direct conversation with Mr. Crevar, former service director. He said, I don't know which one you want to believe, but I'm just going to tell you the truth. The mayor came to me directly, looked me in the face and said, put me on the snowplow list. I have that statement. Now, you take all the credibility you want. He just left this room. Maybe to you, it's a small amount of money. To me, it's the small things that dictate the big things about integrity and character. And be very careful in putting the size on what we're talking about. We have excuses, we have former service director, we have everything. We have accusations of the mayor and different people taking fishing trips and sporting events. I'm not even going to get into that. We didn't even have time to get in depth on that, you know, and I don't know if it really matters with everything else we have. The mayor's running an election. He has a gentleman by the name of Dennis Mulak. He's his treasurer. We have Ed Kuchar, his good friend, who lent him money as his chairman of, or on his committee. At one point in time, the mayor took his debit card from his campaign funds and he paid bills, personal bills. That is a felony in Ohio. You cannot take campaign funds and pay anything except campaign bills and debts. The mayor recently has come out defending it. Believe what you want. I leave that up to you. And he said that he has a debit card at the same bank. I want to make sure you're fair to him. He has a debit card, personal debit card, at the same bank that he had a debit card with his campaign funds. Now, with that in mind, he said he accidentally used the wrong debit card. But if you talk to Mr. Kuchar, and if you talk to Dennis Mulak, they will tell you that's not true. In fact, I have a statement that says after it was discovered that he used the debit card for the campaign election to pay personal bills, Mulak and Kuchar demanded that he put the money back in to the campaign fund. To the mayor's credit, he returned the money back to the campaign fund. Side note, it doesn't eliminate the criminal action, but I do give him credit for putting the money back in. But here's where I find fault. 2 weeks later, he went to Mulak and Kuchar and said, I need to take $1,000 out of my campaign fund to pay some other personal bills. It got so testy, Kuchar took away the mayor's debit card to prevent him from being able to use it without their permission and to quit and stop him from paying personal bills. Now, I'm just telling you what two main people with his campaign fund told us. And those two people removed themselves from his campaign fund, from his campaign committee, due to ongoing issues, as they state. Okay? The mayor broke his ankle, I believe, injured his ankle. He had an asphalt path put around the side of his garage to help him get around. He was on a golf cart, he was having a hard time. He asked Mid-Ohio Asphalt to put that in. Now, in defense of the mayor, the owner of Mid-Ohio Asphalt and him go way back. They're buddies from way back. They've done favors for each other from way back. The mayor needed an asphalt path. Mid-Ohio, allegedly, put this path in for free at no cost to the mayor. Here's the problem. Mid-Ohio has contracts with the city of Macedonia. No matter how best of friends you are, you cannot ask for those kind of agreements or contracts. It's a conflict of interest. It's an ethical issue. You know, aside. But once again, little things determine big things. And the mayor has defended it. In defense of him, he has said that goes back to their childhood, that goes back to his gas station, that he used to fix Mid-Ohio's cars for free, wouldn't charge them except for parts, and that was part of their understanding. So if that's acceptable to you, that's fine. I can only tell you the results of what we got. But when you put all that together, I think you have a pretty good accumulation of things. Mike Ladd's behind me, he's here. I'm anxious to hear what he has to say. As I told you, the big controversies with him and Denise Mulholland, and what happened then, and the timesheets, and, you know, hopefully that can get cleared up. Hopefully we can get a little more detail on the investigation, and we can correct that if it's in fact true. We talked about Molendick being hired already on that. We're not going to rehash any of that. Digitano probably is the smartest of them all. He retired early. And he was concerned with our report. I will say one thing. Mr. Digitano has been quoted in the paper that he returned my phone call. I will tell you for a fact, I will tell you the date, Monday, April 20th. I called him, I talked to him. He promised to call me back the next day. Never returned my phone call. Mr. Ladd did return my phone call. I credit him. Mr. Digitano refused to call me back after talking to me and telling me he would. He's quoted in one of the articles here recently that it was my job to contact him. I did. I did contact him, just for the record. We had other things happen. Mr. Digitano promised a brother of Mickey Lewis in the fire department that he would have the next job because he qualified. And it was a for sure, quote unquote, by Mr. Digitano. That never happened. We didn't go into depth on that, but that was a complaint that came forward. And of course, providing tools, letting employees work on their cars, and we have that under a tape recording. Also, there's various relationships with different leadership here in the city, with different people. Mr. Digitano lived across the street from one of the co-owners and did asphalt. There are other things that happen. I mean, I'm not going to get into it. Just to give you another example, you do business here, city of Macedonia, with Sagamore Soil. Mr. Digitano worked for Sagamore Soil 2 days a week before he was made service director. The only thing here is, people, ethically, you have to reveal those relationships. You're doing contracts with them. It doesn't mean those people can't be used. It just means that you would appropriate precautions so that you wouldn't get accused of favoritism or something. Once again, a lot of this has to be determined as whether you think it's improper, unethical, conducted incorrectly, or it's a conflict of interest, or it's none of the above. And obviously, there's potential for some criminal stuff here if someone pursues it. This report also has been turned over to state agencies and federal agencies. They are very interested in my 37-page report. And as I said before, I will say it again. Everything that's in my report in its totality, not every single thing has been proven. There are sections in there I am explicit about, and I say these are things that have been reported to us. These are things potentially to investigate further. It doesn't mean by us. It could be by someone else, or it could be by nobody. It could be internally. All I want to say is a lot of things that are in this report have been verified and documented, and there are things in this report we just didn't have the time, money, or energy to be able to pursue because we thought enough was enough. The old saying is, how much do I beat the dead horse, is a true saying. And I'm turning this over to the council. They'll ask questions. They have the right to. I have the right to ask questions back. And then they have to decide when I leave what action they want to take. You know, an action to take can be everything. It can be A to Z. It can be calmly. It can be aggressive. You know, it can be whatever you want it to be. But I do want to stress that the council here needs to make a determination. Because one thing is for sure, we'll argue all day. I'm sure Mr. Deemer will want to argue about whether something's ethical, conflict of interest, or criminal. But I will argue one thing, and I will say it adamantly. There is a ton in this report that's improper. Simply improper. And if it's improper, it does not deserve to have a leadership role. So at the least minimum, that has to be determined what's improper and the direction to go. So I'll stop there. I know you all have plenty of questions, so I'll let you ask.
Yes, I do have some comments and some questions, and I'm going to start with a couple of things about the investigations. Again, I'm giving you my opinion. I've been through this in great detail. When we passed the budget in 2014, Mr. Deemer was very unhappy, and there are a number of emails from his account and from Tom Hanselix that indicate how unhappy they were and how Mr. Schwab, our finance director, needed to pay them in the manner they wished to be paid. There were appeals to various agencies, the Attorney General, to the Auditor of State, to a number of folks, and actually to the OPERS organization about the issue of whether or not we would be paying for his PERS. None of those were sustained in favor of Mr. Deemer. The Auditor of State made very clear in a statement to Scott Schwab that he was not to pay him out of any account that didn't have an appropriation. There was a zero appropriation. So what we have there is the beginning of, up to that point, shall we say, there were a number of areas where there were minor conflicts, but this led to a major confrontation between the finance director and Mr. Deemer. When this investigation process started, is also disputed. I will tell you that I reviewed every bill between 2011 and 2013, end of that, beginning of 2014, all the way up to the point we had bills, at the point I reviewed them. And I never saw any investigation indicated of the finance director until April of 2014, after this big dispute started. So I think, number one, with all of this is, Mr. Deemer, if he was asked to be, by the mayor, to investigate, should have recused himself, and should have said, if you need to have an investigation, there needs to be someone brought in from the outside, because I've been in conflict with this man over payment of my remuneration. So, when this was presented to us, middle September, there were several months that went on here, there were additional emails, which are all public record, between Mr. Schwab and Mr. Deemer. When it was brought to the council by the mayor, there was a package that was given to us for review of 8 allegations, which have been repeated over and over and over in these various reports. And there were 2 additional allegations which were provided via email at that time, which related to Mr. Digotano being told that unless they hired Mr. Schwab's son, that there would be somehow that Scott would not be willing to be helpful to Mr. Digotano. And the other one was about what Mr. Ladd said about Mr. Mollenbeck. So we looked at everything at that time. The council, along with the mayor, there was an extensive review of all of this, and the council indicated to the mayor that they did not think particular set of allegations properly investigated or sustained. And that if we, I said at that time, and I said via email, which is public record, that I felt that there needed to be specifically further investigation of the two issues that were raised subsequent to the package arriving, which had to do with the relationship of Scott's son to the hiring of Scott's son to any problems with Mr. Gigatano and Mr. Mullen having any reason why, there would be a reason why Mr. Lab would have to consider hiring him. So I specifically said, I think there needs to be a polygraph of this. Not sworn statements and polygraphs, because at that time, those were not sworn statements. The mayor chose to disregard our advice and went forward with an attempt to remove Mr. Schwab. We then rejected that based on the 10 allegations that were made were insufficient and didn't have the proper information with them. We said, no, as a council, we're not doing that. We had a regular council meeting. It was in our charter that we, as a council, have to also concur in the removal, the majority have to concur in the removal. And the reason for that is very simple. The finance director performs a fiduciary role in the city, just like the various finance officers in the township. That involves making sure that people aren't taking money or improperly or doing other things which are in conflict with the financial interests of the city. So the finance director is under fiduciary obligation, and as the auditor of state made very clear to Mr. Schwab, he can't do what he just wants. He has to make sure that even though the mayor wants something or the law director wants something, it has to be proper and legal. So at that time, excuse me, sir, I'm talking.
Council call a point of order. This is their investigator. We should have an opportunity.
Well, you will have an opportunity.
Well, why pile on? He's reported your.
No, I'm not piling on, sir. I am stating.
Your beliefs perfectly.
Listen, no, sir. Point of order.
Council is gonna talk first, and then the administration.
No, no, ma'am, I am talking.
Excuse me.
I'm
Okay,
talking.
as soon as Sylvia's done,
We want to hear what Sylvia has to
as
say.
soon as Sylvia's done, you
Ask
can
a
have
question, so we can ask more questions. I have a whole laundry list of questions.
Well, you certainly are going to have the time to make them. If you look at it, I have been accused of a number of things. And I intend to.
And Sylvia has the floor.
I have the floor, please. Okay.
Understand rules, Robert's rules.
Bottom line was, the mayor restored Mr. Schwab to duty on September 29th. In the face of all those allegations and our review of them, and the bottom line was, Mr. Schwab was restored to duty. So this investigation process did not lead to the removal of Mr. Schwab. That did not happen. He was restored to duty. And what happened next? Mr. Schwab discovered that the mayor had made improper use of the senior low-income program. With that point in mind, Mr. Schwab forwarded that information to the chief of police, Mr. Bolden. There was, within a few days of that occurring, Mr. Schwab was re-escorted out of the building. And I conclude, based on the information that I saw, that he was taken out because he reported, as he properly should, that there was evidence of improper use of the senior loan program by the mayor. That's a proper thing for him to do. With regard to the what happened next is, the mayor, Mr. Schwab was put on paid administrative leave. The next thing that happened is, we thought we would have an investigation proceeding on these matters. And we did ask, actually, the council president, Mr. Engel, asked that this be referred to the county prosecutor's office and the sheriff's department, which is the proper place for it to go. Ended up to be not the case that it went there. It went to basically the Attorney General's office and then subsequently to the Auditor of State. A lot of this process and a long time it's taken was because it takes a long time when you're doing those things. We did not find out results, no criminal wrongdoing until much later. We as an organization, I believe, had every right to expect appropriate, strong action on any of these allegations. I did not know about some of the allegations that were in the report. The mayor has basically, with Mr. Dimmoff's report, basically the mayor, from what I can see in a letter to some friends that got posted on Facebook, the mayor has confirmed they did receive, for example, this asphalt walkway put in by one of the city contractors free. Now, is that ethical? No, it's not. It's clear. From the Ohio law, ethics laws, that's not clear. It's ethical for a private businessman to do that, to have an arrangement. It is because he's representing the city and the financial interests of the city, it is not ethical to do that. Now, the mayor's basically confirmed most of this in this letter. So you can say that it's no longer an allegation, it's something he agrees, including all these other issues of spending money out of his campaign account. So, here's what I'm going to say about all of this. We have already seen the consequences of this. The leader sets the standard. The leader sets the standard. When I was managing over 100 people, and some of my first jobs within the Department of Defense, I was a larger scale manager, I had some statements on my board that I put there that I wanted every person who was a manager working for me to see. And I said the priority order in this organization is, first, do the right thing. Don't be doing things that other people can question you about or say that you have the wrong intent. And what we have here is a situation where, in my opinion again, Mr. Deemer should have never been involved in any investigation of this situation because Mr. Schwab and he were in a conflict, I think unfairly, honestly, but we're in a conflict over this. And second, what is the standard? Is there a disparate treatment of people who do things? And the answer is yes, there is. So, bottom line, I want to make sure that everyone understands. This has nothing to do with any personal feeling I have about the mayor. I've never said anything publicly negative about the mayor, and I don't intend to. What I have said is, when he's done something wrong, I have said, this is wrong. Period. And I have a right to do that, and I should do that. But it hasn't been a personal issue on anything. And so as far as I'm concerned, all this, the accusations that are thrown around, simply come to this. You're caught, and now you want to blame other people. You shouldn't be doing that. And from my standpoint, I want to make sure that I'm on the record. I had no input in how this was investigated, and I had no input on any process that they used. We hired this person because he has a good reputation as an investigator. I didn't know him before, I know him now. That's all. Thank
last pages of this report, did you? You might have wanted to have done that legally. Because in here, you made a lot of statements, he did this, he did that, he did this, but your disclaimer specifically says this is still under investigation, none of this is truly verified. I could read it. And I think that's important for folks to realize, because I don't want you to set yourself up here. But, but, I have concern because there are, you have a disclaimer on all of the past, on the last part of your report, not on the one on Mr. Spot, but on the last part. First question I have is when I read this report, it lists in here all the council members, and you made the comment that we're all connected, and you interviewed, I was never interviewed, never approached to be interviewed, so I'm assuming that was an oversight on your part. But I do have a very valid question. In here it lists Jan Tully, AT&T employee. What relevance is my employment to this report? What relevance is my outside employment to this report?
Where are you referencing, Jane?
Pardon me?
Where are you referencing?
Page 5.
Page 6.
Do you know which page?
I just want to know why our outside employment is listed.
It's page 6, page 5 of
Page
37.
five.
Page 5 at the top.
Page 6 of my-
Another one, it's Carol.
I was handed this list, and I just incorporated it into the list of potential people that we might interview. We added a few, but I was handed that list, and that's how I received it.
What relevance was my job?
Mr. Dillon, you had asked us to gather names of everybody that works for the city and council members and everybody and what our titles were and what we did outside of council. I believe that may clear that up. So,
And who provided
Mr.
it?
Dimoff had asked for it, and I think Sylvia provided it. Did you provide it? Yes.
What relevance was it? I have a concern, my company has a concern. What relevance?
Yeah. The only relevance it has is if we wanted to attempt to contact you, it would give us an avenue to contact you back. And at that time, if we would have contacted you, say at AT&T, then you would have had the right and the privilege to say, hey, I can't talk to you now, or I can talk to you now, or I can meet you at lunch, or I can give you another number to give. We did not need, nor did we talk to you, but I asked for ability to be able to contact people, and the only way it means was potentially maybe we had to contact some people through work. If it offends you, I apologize to you here in front of
It
everybody.
doesn't offend me, I
And-
just find it irrelevant.
No,
And I
I-
also asked the question, that if your reason was to be able to get a hold of me, there are no phone numbers here, so how would you know how to get a hold of me at AT&T? We have 100,000 employees. Just the question. My other question would be, if this was contact list, why is Ms. Farrell's previous employment not mentioned, but you mentioned Sylvia's retirement, which is irrelevant? This is irrelevant in the beginning.
Well, all I can tell you is, when we got a list of names and contacts and potential when we started out, and we were trying to figure out in the beginning how we would make contact, who we would make it through. But the bottom line is, initially when we started, we had a hodgepodge of names and people and appointments, and some phone numbers and some not. And all I can tell you is that what we gathered and put together, and wanted to be honest and let you know what we were provided and not hide details from anybody, and that's why this report's pretty thorough.
See, the list was provided to you, that kind of explains why some people's mentioned, some isn't. My apologies there, just makes, it's illogical.
As time went on, Jan, realistically, that list wasn't used as much as I had planned or thought we could. We really had to go out and do our own hard work to find the right contacts and phone numbers and that, especially after we were not allowed to interview employees, during the workday. So, once again, we did the best we could on it. And I'm gonna say this again, is this a perfect report?
list of who actually was interviewed then?
Pardon?
Because if you're saying this kind of is the list, but it's not the list,
No.
or is the list?
Now, this is a list that we potentially at the beginning were provided, that we added names to, that we are saying that we might go to and interview those people, and that we might not. It was a start-off potential list, to be honest with you. We went a lot further than that list, and a lot of the names on the list we never approached.
I just think it would behoove those of us who read the report to know who actually spoke to, who you did not speak to, because there was a lot of information said tonight, but we don't know who said it. You know, it said an unknown employee. There's, in here, it says employee of that. It doesn't say who is that employee. Is it Mr. Spa? Is it a council member who should not be considered an employee? And so I find that disconcerting when I'm trying to write a report and understand who said what. It's not clear. So take that to heart, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Does each person that did get interviewed, did they sign a sworn statement as done by the previous investigation that was done?
The biggest issue we had is almost the majority of the people we talked to, they don't even want their names mentioned, let alone signing anything. That was our biggest hurdle. Once again, I'll stress to you, I wish that they would provide their name and provide a written statement. And at the beginning, as I reiterated, if I get two people telling me, I don't like Scott, I don't like Mr. Ladd, I don't approve of the mayor, I can understand there being disgruntlement. But when you have dozens of employees calling you and saying, I will talk to you under one condition, you cannot even remotely begin to tell them who I am.
Why?
Why?
Why are they frightened?
This is,
Well,
I have another question. Oh, I'm sorry,
We're not done with the,
you can't interrupt, okay?
Okay, yes.
In answer to the question of why, they were just very, very cautious. They believe that retaliation is at a very strong theme, and we even supported that, you know, at the beginning. Once again, I'm gonna tell you, you hear someone complain, and you go, hey, disgruntled employees. But let me remind you, you just lost 2 HR directors. We did
is
interview.
that relevant to this discussion right now?
Yeah, it is very
Continue
relevant
my
because
question.
you're
You know
one
what,
HR
one-
director.
One answer, no.
I am answering.
Can we follow through?
I'm trying to finish the answer to a question, but go ahead.
Well, because it's not relevant. My other question would be, there's some legal opinions in here. Which lawyer provided you those opinions? So I can talk to them about it.
As it's stated in here, and as I stated here several times, and as they taped in that, I said, this will have to go forward. It's everything and anything potentially from improper, unethical, conflict of interest, and/or criminal. I have said that 3 times tonight, and I have said that I did not make that determination. I said that that is a determination that needs to go forth and be determined by others outside of me. All I'm doing is reporting the facts of what was reported to me. I will leave it up to you as counsel or whoever to determine what level that you want that to be. I will leave it up to the state and federal agencies, you know, to make that
I'm
determination.
not discussing your allegations from page 40. I'm truly focusing on why this report was created, which was the accusations against Mr. Spa. That's where I'm focusing right now.
Okay, let's
The rest
talk-
of this
talk-
disclaimer states is not verified and therefore needs further work. So my question would be, when it's stated in here, legal opinion, about something Mr. Spa did, who gave us that opinion? I think that's a fair question.
We were asked to investigate, we investigated, we asked questions, we got answers. We provided a polygraph, we got answers to polygraphs. We have other employees who are verifying the action that we responded to and that we reported. You know, that is the function of what we're doing.
So you did not have a lawyer.
Pardon?
There was no lawyer that provided legal guidance on certain issues, such as if it was okay, post-date or pre-date or that kind of thing?
We did not ask.
Okay.
We were trying to determine the accusations that we were provided, whether they took place or not.
Okay, so there wasn't a lawyer, that's all I needed was yes or no. There's a comment made in here about Ms. Flanagan. Is that for public disclosure, Mr. Deeman? I thought there had been a previous, prior to my returning to the seat, lawsuit.
This
It
is,
was gag order.
as you know, the city has no connection to this report, the administration has no connection to this report. It was not submitted to us for review, and there were never any questions to us. So whether or not it's legal or not, there's a whole lot in here that we would talk about.
Mr. Deemer, on the Macedonia website, Mary Beth Ward's report is posted on the website. Mary Beth Ward's, Mr. Demoff was given Mary Beth Ward's report, but it's on the website. Mary Beth Ward's is the one who openly talks about Ms. Flanagan, not Mr. Demoff. So it's on the website, and from my understanding, that was supposed, well, because he got it off Mary Beth Ward's report, which is on the website that the city has posted. So,
I don't think her name was mentioned.
well, I think it was,
This is Mary Beth's report is in here. In this document that Mr. Demoff created, in here is response to all of hers. And just for the record, who the heck is Mary Beth Words? Mary Beth Words was an independent lawyer, works for the employee, some council.
human resource
Escapes
law.
me, but we were long, you know, when Ms. Hannigan just talked about how this process had come about, one of the things we talked about was hiring an independent investigator. Well, months went by, and none was hired. Ms. Hannigan specifically told us would not be anyone out of Summit County nor Cuyahoga County. So I am an acquaintance of a prosecutor in Geauga County who gave me some names, as well as someone else gave me some names from this employee council. Council chose not to move forward with any of them. The mayor made an independent decision to move forward since we were stalled. We're paying someone to sit at home, something needed to move forward. So when you hear this Mary Beth Words, she is a lawyer, she's a highly regarded lawyer in the industry for HR. She came back with her report, so if you look at the 45 pages, you'll see her report and then the rebuttal. So you understand that there's both are included in here, but that should clarify that. So, you won't replace the names, you won't replace. That's all I have right now. Thank you for indulging me.
So, Nick, do you have any questions?
Actually, more of a statement. First and foremost, I think it's appropriate that we pay homage to the veterans. Yesterday was Memorial Day. We haven't mentioned that here tonight, but I think that's truly appropriate that we give our respects to those who have served. I'll start with that.
Sir.
The first thing I want to bring up is the investigation is about Scott. We often get into the administrative and legislative debate. As long as I've been up here, I tend to stay out of the administrative decision-making. There's things that come to our lap that we need to deal with. I have been a strong proponent of saying no, a lot of things we shouldn't deal with. There could be a lot of things going on, gamesmanship, whatever you want to call it, I try to stay out of it. This particular situation was brought to council to make a decision. We were forced to make a decision one evening, and we did it. That kind of stalled everything. To date, we spent over $100,000, including his pay. $100,000. Here I am, I'm thinking about the rain outside, I'm thinking about the people on Ledge Road and North Bedford flooding. We got $100,000 going to the toilet. I'm concerned about my community. I'm concerned about where we're going. I'm not even going to talk about these investigations. To be honest with you, I've had it. I don't know why we sit here and bitch about it. Mr. Swats, you know darn well that if we brought you back, this is not going to be an environment conducive for you or anyone else working in it. It's not appropriate. There's a lot of different ways we can handle this. We could have went into executive session and tried to work something out. I proposed that. I was denied. So we're over $100,000, still with no decision, sitting here with trying to move on, stop the bickering, and concentrate on what's important. We've got roads that need attention, we've got stormwater issues that need a lot of attention. That's what we need to focus on, not Mr. Swab and the finance director anymore. My opinion hasn't changed, I've read all the reports, I'm gonna stick with what I felt all along from what I've read and what my decision is, but my focus is on the community and not the finance director anymore. So, I'm done with it, I won't make any more statements about it, and I will not bicker about it. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, Mr. Grimall. Thank you for attending tonight and making the presentation.
Mr. Dillon, I'd like to thank you for your time this evening. And I have some of the questions that after I read your report, which I found a little troubling, is our mayor, did you speak to Mary Beth Wertz at all? The investigator that was hired by the mayor?
I had some brief email exchanges with her. I had several requests for some documents from her on the interviews. Those documents those additional documents did not come to me until we had the report already finished and handed in.
Do you know why they did not come to you?
I had fairness to her, I think there was some confusion on whether she could give them to me or whether she was supposed to or whatever. Don't know for sure, but I sense, I think that she went back and I think she contacted either the mayor or Mr. Deaver here and one of them or both of them told her it was okay at that point. And she did eventually send. I don't know for a fact why.
Right. One of the troubling questions I have, when I read Mr. Demoff's report, and I read Mr. Deaver's report, and I read Mary Beth Wertz's report, and I read the auditor's report. And I found it very strange that Mary Beth Wertz is a human resource attorney, and that's what she specializes in. And then after reading Mr. Demoff's report, I had no knowledge until the report came out that Mary Beth Wertz, the attorney that was hired by the mayor, she never ever talked to the Human Resource Department here in the city of Macedonia, Ohio. And I learned in the report that if she had, and she had told Mr. Demoff, according to the report that I read, that the other investigators would have learned a lot from her, okay, about Mr. Swab and about other things that were occurring in the city. And I do not have knowledge of what those other things about the city are, but Mr. Demoff does. And I've not asked him that, but I really found it very, very strange that nobody's asking that question. And I also found it strange that Mary Beth Wertz never interviewed payroll. Payroll here in the city of Macedonia has worked with Scott Swab the longest and has been directly connected with him. Not only do they work next door to each other in their offices and stuff, but she has documented everything all these years between her and Scott and Human Resource and so forth, and nobody ever took the time to speak to these two departments. Am I right or wrong on it, Mr. Demoff?
Yeah, the only exception to that is Ms. Attorney Wertz did ask the HR director where to find some of the guidelines for the city, and the HR director did direct her to those sites. She told me that was about the only conversation she had.
And then some of the employees that have contacted me that want to stay anonymous, they have gone to the Human Resource about a lot of issues that were going on in the city for a couple of years now, am I right?
Employees stated that they went to both human resource directors over time and talked to them about what's called personality conflicts, concerns would be a good word, and that they went to the HR directors over some concerns, and not necessarily to solve them, not necessarily for any, but didn't really know who to go to felt intimidated by their direct supervision in their divisions or areas. And the latest HR director did confirm that several employees did come to her with concerns about the management and the style of management and some of the intimidation that was going on. She did tell me she felt there wasn't anything that she could do. She felt sorry for a few of them, but she said it really was out of her control or her realm. She was more than willing to talk to them. And what that did for us on the investigation is we have to be careful. We need to confirm what disgruntled employees are saying. I mean, a disgruntled employee can really say a lot of stuff that can be untrue. And what ways that you verify that in investigations is, number one, is there more than one person saying the same thing? We had numerous saying the same thing. They would tell us, well, I went to so-and-so and talked to so-and-so. We would go to so-and-so and say, hey, by the way, did anybody ever come and talk to you about a specific situation? And they go, oh yeah, you know, Tim Dimoff did about 3 months ago. So we would use what we call variance verification to verify what someone would tell us. We would not just take it, you know, by their word. And we were able to cross-reference a lot of this information and verify it. And then the other thing we did is we looked at past practices of people who left and their experiences, because now that they left as employees, they're a little bit more open to talk about their experiences. So we use that as some of our verification too, you know. And like anything else, I'm sure not every single employee tells every single truth. But one thing I can tell you, I can stand here before you and tell you, a lot of what those employees said was verified. Was verified from other people who they had went to and told this to or whatever. And there seems to be a little bit of a history of that kind of action. So I'm going to tell you that, like anything else, I'm sure there's a couple bad apples that were out to just sink the ship. But a majority of these employees are hardworking, good citizens. And we were able to really verify with them and get some statements. So that's the best we can do when nobody wants to come forward and give their name. We have to work with the tools that we have.
Mr. Dimoff, I also like to say that I'll tell you right now, I was never interviewed by Joe Deemer when he was doing his investigation. I don't know about the rest of the council. I was never interviewed by Mary Beth Wertz, the one that the mayor had hired. I don't know about the rest of the council. And I did speak to you at times when you called me or if something came up and I asked you to look into it pertaining to something. That's my communication with you. And then if you had questions, I answered your questions. So if you had questions. And I think initially because Sylvia and I are the ones that actually came to you and actually initially hired you, and I don't know if that was because of our initial contact. But I really like to thank you for your time in this. And are you charging us for any of this overtime?
I'm not charging for the extra investigation. I'm not charging for this. Because I told everybody.
That's one question, and this is not of Mr. Dimoff.
Okay.
This is of the police department, the law department. Investigation of these allegations, when did they truly begin?
In the 2012.
Thank you. The allegation has been made tonight, this was done as a retaliation. I think it should be noted that this investigation started in 2012. It's 2 years before any change was made to legislation of how the law department was to be paid.
And I can also state that.
So with those, the administration, we would like to ask.
Yeah, and I can also state that one of the things I asked for was Scott Schwab's personal employee folder. And in that personal folder, for everybody to know, Scott Schwab has never been written up for nothing. Not even in 2012, not 2013, not 2014. And I guess the end of 2014, he was put on leave. But just so you know, he was never written up for anything in his personnel file, just for your record. Thank you.
My last question, again, is not to Mr. Dimoff. I think we've gone through the report. My question again would be for the police department. Polygraph testing has general considerable scientific and public controversy. That it can be or cannot be manipulated, not by the polygraph tester. Let me say that. Including the United States Supreme Court does not agree to the validity of polygraph tests. I ask you, because we've talked about this before in a whole nother situation, is there any concern of a polygraph test being valid?
Well, I think what you just read answers that question. I mean, I'm not a polygraph operator, I can't speak to it, but there is a reason they're not admissible in court. Stipulated tests could be, just like stipulated voice stress can be. But, I mean, I think what you read answers the question already.
What do you use? Is there something other than polygraphs that are not used, since most courts consider it inadmissible?
There's nothing that's admissible unless it's stipulated. The test we use is a computer voice stress analyst type testing, and even that is not admissible in court unless it's stipulated prior to by defense and prosecution that it has to be stipulated.
Mr.
You want to
Lieutenant
say?
Yanukovych, I have two more comments because of what was said here. One is, you do use polygraphs when you hire employees, is that correct?
Not by my choice.
Well, I'm not asking you. I'm asking you if that's a fact. It is a fact, isn't it?
That's a correct.
Yes, and it's an investigative tool, that's why it's being used. Second, the fact is that I reviewed in detail every detailed part of the billing that I received from our law department, and there is absolutely no evidence, and there's evidence of other investigations going on, nothing until April of 2014. So the statement that someone is making that they did it in 2012, I do not believe, because there's no evidence of it. And there is evidence in 2014, April and beyond.
You know, prior to April, we were on retainer.
Well, yes, but we had
There was
details
no
from your
detail, though.
retainer, and we had details, some details on investigations. So let's go to